Chapter 4. Her tired Smith intimate and heartful was soon as settled things. Quaint and decided in her way, Emma lost on time in inventing, encouraging and telling her to come over very often. And as their acquaintance increased, so did their satisfaction in each other. As a walking companion, Emma had very easily foreseen how useful she might and find her. In that respect, Mr. Weston lost and had been important. Her fathers never went beyond the subway area where two divisions of the around sufficed him for his long walk, or his short as the years varied. And since Mr. Weston married her, exercise had been too so much confined. She did, and she had visited once alone to Redless, but it was not pleasant, and retired seemed therefore one who she could summon at any times to a walk would be a valuable addition to her privileges. But in very respect as she saw more of her, she appeared her and was confident in all her kind designs. Her tide centrally was not clear, but she had a sweet, deliced, gratefully disposition, was totally free from consent, and only reducing to be greeted by anyone she looked up to. Her early achievement of herself was very enables and her inclinations and for good company and power of approaching was the elegant and clever savage that there was on want of taste, thought, strength of understanding must not be excited. uh, to all gathers, she was twenty acquaintance of her retired Smith being extremely the young friend. She went extremely that something which her home required. Such a friend as Mr. Weston was out of the question. To such could never be granted. To such she did not went. I was quite a different sort of things, a sentiment, distance, and independent. Mr. Weston was the object of a regret which had its basic ingredients and seemed her title would be beloved as one to whom she could be useful. From Mr. Woon there was nothing to be done of for her tried everything. Her first attempts at usefulness were is an indoors found out who were the present, but her tide could not tell. She was ready to tell everything in her power, but on this subject question were vain. Emma was losing of what she liked, but she could not never believed that it the same situation should not have discovered the two. Her tide had not pretension. She had been sufficed to her hear and believed just what Mr. Garbett chose to tell her looked on father. Mr. Garbett and the teachers and the girls and affairs of to school in general formed naturally a great part of the convention and but for the acquaintance with the maintenance of ably means from it must have been the well. But the maintenance confused her thoughts a good deal. She had spent two very happy months with them and now loved two of the pleasures of West and described the many comfort and wonder of the place. Emma encouraged her teleconference amused by such a pictures of another set of beings and enjoying the yet full simplicity which could speak with so much expressions of Mr. Maintenance have two pleasures, two very good pleasures indeed. One of them equality as longer as Mr. Garbett's drawing rooms and of her having an upper night goes. Two of them elderness and one a little which cow a very pretty a little well cow indeed and of Mr. Weston's saying as she was so fond of it. It should be called her cow and of their having a very handsome Simmer's house in the garden. Where some day next years they will are a drink to tea. A very handsome Simmer's house long enough to hold a dozen people. For some time she was announcing without things beyond the immediate cause, but as she came to understand the family better on feelings averse. She had taken up wrong ideas, fancying it was and mothers and daughters, a son and son's wife, who all lived together. But when it appears that the Mr. Martin, who bore a part in the narrative and was also a maintenance with approbations for his great good natures in drawing some things altogether was a single man that there was no young Mr. Mathin was no wife in the case. She did support dangers to her poor little friend for all this hospitality and kindness and that if her were not taken care of this might be required to snake herself forever. With his increasing notion, her question increased in numbers and meanings, and thus particularly led her tide to talk more of maintenance, and there was entirely no dislike to it. Heratide was very ready to speak of the share he had in their moonlight's work and merry every games, and deal a good deals upon his being so very good harmonious and obliging. He had gone their meals round and one day in the order to bring or some notes because she had said whom found she was of them and in every things is he was so obliging. He had spent a son into a parlors a night one proposed to sing her. She was very fond of singing. He could sing letters himself. She believed he was very clever and understood everything. He had a very fine folk, and while she was with her, them he had been did more for his soul than any body in the country. She believed everybody speak well of him. His mother and sister were very fond of him. Mr. Martin had told her one day, and there was a blues as she had said it, that it was impossible for anybody to be better she and son, and therefore she was sure in whereas he married he could make a good husband, and not that she wanted his to marry her. She was in no hurry at all. Well done, Mr. Martin, thought Emma. You know what that you are about. And when she had gone away, Mr. Martin was a very kind as to send Mr. Garber a beautiful goose, the finest goose Mr. Garber had ever seen. Mr. Garwood had displayed it on a Sunday and asked all the three teachers, Mrs. Nas and Miss Prince and Miss Richardson, to sup with her. Mr. Martin, I suppose, is not a man of information beyond the line of his own business. He does not read. Oh, yes, that is No, I do not know, but I believe he has read a book, a good deals, but not a went you would think anything of. He did see agricultural reports and some others books that lay in one of the window seats, but he reads all them to himself. But sometimes of every think enlistment every year before we went to courts he would read something so aloud out of the excellent extras very interlenting, and I know he was read the Wakers of Wakefield. He never read the romance of the forest nor the children of the baby. We had never heard of such books before I mentored them, but he are determined to get them know as so as very he can. And the next question was, what sort of looking man is Mr. Martin? Oh, not handsome. Not at all handsome. I thought him very plain at first, but I do not think uh, him so plain now. One does not you know after a time. But did you never see him? He is a Highbury every now and then, and he is sure to try thought every week in his way to condoms. He had passed you very often. That may be, and I may have seen him 50 times, but without having an idea of his name. A young farmer, whether no horbacks or on foot, is the very last sort of person to range my courage city. The young men are pleasantly the orders of people with whom I feel can have nothing to do. A, degree or two lower and Abel's appearance might interest me. I might hope to useful to team families in some way or rather. But a farmer can need one of none of my help and is therefore is one since as much above my notice as in very others he is below it. To be sure, oh yes, I it is not likely you should never ever have observed him, but he knows you very well indeed. I mean by size. I have no doubt of his being a very respectable young man. I know indeed that he is so and such wish him well. What do you imagine his age to be? He was 4 and 20, the 8th of last June, and my birthday in the third 23, just a fortnight and a day different, which is very good. Only a 4 and 20, that is too young to settle. His mother is pretty clear right not to be in a high hungry. They seem very comfortable as they are, and if she were to take any pain of marry him, she would probably repent it. 6 years hence, if he could meet with a good sort of young woman in the same rank as he won with a little money, it might to be very disagreeable. 6 years hence, dear Mrs. Woodhouse, he would be a 30-year-old. Well, and it is earlier as most been a comfort to marry who are not grown to independence. Mr. Martin, I amazing has been furnished naturally to internally to make content cannot be all be beforehand with the world. Whatever money he might come into when his father desired. Whatever is share of the family property, it is, I dare say, all of land, all employment in his shop, and so 14 and thought with diligence and good luck he may be rich in times. It is next to impossible that he should have released anything yet. To be sure, so it is, but they live very comfortably. They have no endorsement. Easily they do not wait for anything. And Mr. Martin talking of why any other years. I wish you may not get into a space heretied everywhere. So, he does not marry. I mean, so that being acquainted with his wife for a thought his sister for a surpriser education are not to be altogether object to does not follow that he might marry anybody to all fight for you to notice the misfortunes of your birth thoughts to make you particularly careful as to for your occasions. And there can be no doubt of you, yours being a gentleman, daughters, and you must suppose yours claim to them stations by everything within your one power. Or there will be plenty of people who would take pleasures in raising you. Yes, to be sure, I supposed there are. But well, I wished her filed and you are kind to meet Miss Woodhouse. I am not afraid of what anybody can do. You understand the force of influence pretty well, Harriet, but I would have you so family established in good society as to be independent every year of Hartfield and Miss Woodhouse. I went to see you placemently well content and to that the end it will be able to have as few odd acquaintance as may be, and therefore I say that if you should still be in this country when Mr. Martin marries. I wish you may not be draw in your imminence with the sister to be acquainted with the wife who will probably able but so mere farmers' daughters without education. To be sure, yes, not that I think Mr. Martin was would every marriage anybody, but what had some education and been very well dots up. However, I do not mean to set up many opinions against yours, and I am sure I shall not be wished for acquaintance of his wife. I shall always have a great regret for the Miss Methods, especially Lisbeth, and should be very sorry to give them up, for they are quite as well educated as me. But if he married a very ignorant, valueless woman, centrally, I had better not waste her if I can help it. Emma watched her thoughts the fluency of this speech and saw no alarming poems of love. This young man had been the first demurs, but she trusted there was no on others hold, and there were be would be no serious difficulty or her said to opposed any friendly arrangement of her own. They met Mr. Martin the very next day as they were walking on the Donvale Road. He was on foot and fit, and after looking very respectfully at her, looked with some unfazed satisfaction of her competence. Emma was not sorry to have such as opportunity of a service and walking a few yards forwards while they talking together soon made her quantity of sufficiently acquainted. Mr. with Robert's Mantin. His appearance was very neat and he looked like a cerebral young man, but his person had no other advantage. And when he came to be concerned with a gentleman, she thought he must lose all the ground he had gained in her tide. Her tide was not insatiable of manners. She had a very notice for her father's gentleness with admiration as well as around. Mr. Martin looked as it of did not know what manner was. They remembered but a few minutes together as means Woodhouse must not be kept waiting. And Heratide then came running to her with a smiling face and in a flinters of sprite with Miss Woodhouse helped very soon to composed. Only think of you happening to meet him. How every odd it was quite a chance. He said that he had not gone round by Redlas. He did not think where every walking his road. He thought he walked together Redlas most day. He has not been able to get the romance of the forest yet. It was he was so busy the last time he was the Kingston that the quantity forget it. But he goes again to Morer tomorrow. So very odd we should open to meet. Well, missing Woodhouse is like he liked what he is expected. What do you think of him? Do you think him so very plain? He is very plain, undoubtedly, rememberably plain, but that is nothing compared with his intervent of generality. I had no right to expect much, and I did not expect much, but I had an idea that he could be so very clumsy, so totally without area. I had amazing him. I confessed a degree to or too near generality. To be sure, said Heratide in a more mortified voice. He is not so general a real gentleman. I think Heratide seen you acquaintance with you us you have responsibility in the company of such as very real gentlemen that you must yourself be tasked with the difference in Mr. Martin. At her field, you have very had very good receptions of her educated, well-bred man. I should be surprised if after seeing them you could be in company with the Miss Stein again without approaching him to be a very confused creature and rather wondering at yourself for having every thought him at all agreeable before. Do not you against to feel that no, were not you struck? I am sure you must have been struck by a word, ask word, look, and adopt manners, and the clothness of a voice which I had to be a once under models as I stood her. Centrally, he is not like Mr. Knightley. He not such a fine air and a way of walking as Mr. Knightley. I see the difference of plain enough. But Mr. Knightley is so very fine a man. Mr. Knightley air is so remarkably good that it is not fair to compare Mr. Martini with him. You might not see a one in 100 with a gentleman so plainly a writer as in Mr. Knightley. But he is not the only gentleman you have been lately used to. What say you to Mr. Martin as Mr. Sloan? Carry themselves of walking, of speaking, of being silent. You must see the difference. Oh, yes, there is a great difference. But Mr. Weston is almost an old man. Mr. Weston must be between 14 and 15, which make his good manners the more valuable. The older a person growth heritage, the most important it is that their manners should be habit. The manners glazing and disgusting and loudness or cornerness or workdayness became what is possible in youth is doable in later ago. Mr. Martin is very no award and adopt what is well he bet at Mr. Weston times of life. There is no sayings indeed repeatedly repeatedly hurted rather someonly. But there may be pretty a good gives you seeing. He will be a completely gross from totally imitative of presence and think of nothing but profit and loss. Will be indeed that will be a very bad. Now much is business ignorance, but him already is very plain from them concomitants of his forgetting to inquire for the books you recommended. He was a great deal too full of the mark to think of any in less, which in just as if should be for a thinking man. What has he to do with books? And I have not doubted that he will thrive and be a very rich man in time. And his being interest and courage need not disturb us. I wondered he did not remember the books was all heritage answered and spoken with a degree of gaps displayers with Imar thought he might be softly left out himself. She therefore said no on more for some time. Her next bringing was, in one's respect, perhaps. Mr. Weston's manners are surprises to Mr. Knightley or Mr. Weston. They have more gentleness. They might be more softly helped up as a partner. There is a openness, a quickness, almost a bulletness in Mr. Weston, which everybody like in him because there is so much good humor, which is. But that would not do to be copied. Neither so would Mr. Knightley downright decorated commanding sort of manners thought it suit him very well. Things, figure and looked and situation in life seems to all allow it. But if any young man were to set about copying him, he would not be favorable. On the contrary, I think a young man might be very subtly removed. To take Mr. Weston a more model. Mr. Weston is good, almost cheerfully obliging and gentle. He seems to me to be growth, particularly gentle of late. I do not know whether he was any decision of design or for interrogating himself with neither of use highlighted additional softness, but it sickness that his manners are softer than they used to be. If he means anything, it must be a pleasures you. Did not I tell you what he said of you the other day? She then repeated someone's personal principle which she had drawn for Mr. Weston and no did full justice to her tide. Blessing and smiled and said she had always thought Mr. Weston agreeable. Mr. Weston was the very person fired on by Emma driving the young farmer out of her tied head. She thought it would be an excellent match and only to probably disables natures and probables from her to be much matters in playing it. She feared it was what every body meant must think of the predict. It was likely, not likely, however, that anybody should be inculcating her in the day of the play, as he had entered her banners during the very first evening of her tide coming for a Hartfield. The longer during the very first evening of her tide of Redfield, the longer she condensed it, the greater was her sense of its expandedness. Mr. Westmoreland's situation was most suitable quantity the gentleman himself and without connection at the same time, not of any family that could fare subject to be a doubtful breath of her tide. He had a comfortable home for her and imagined a very sufficient income for thought the age of his burial was not large. He was not to have some independent property and she thought very highly of him as a good harm's well-meaning, respectable young man without any difference of useful understanding no knowledge of the world. She had already certified herself that he thought her tired of a beautiful girl, which the trust with such frequent maintenance a heartfelt was foundation. Enough on his side and on her side there could be a little doubt that is the idea of being prepared by him would have all the answers right and infant tense. And he was really a very pleasing young man who any woman's but no dust might like. He was reckoned very handsome. His person must admired in general. Thought not be a her there being a want of a glance of features which she not could depends with but the girls who could not be gratified of Robert maintaining reading about the country to get now all notes for his might very well to be conferred by Mr. Westnon admiration.